Number 20, Le Beau Flower Edition. This fragrance talked about more than any other release this year, except for the 19 that are coming after this. And this one's a really weird release because when it was first dropped, I thought it was gonna be huge. That was before I got my hands on it, but when it was first announced, because Le Beau, Le Parfum, Le Beau Paradise Garden, huge releases, right? Everybody talks about those nonstop. I figured this one's gonna be the same deal. Instead, it dropped toward the beginning of the year and people, by and large, were like, now the scent itself, pretty good. It does have that nice balance of freshness and sweetness, but I think the whole flower edition vibe put some people off. Number 19, Devotion Pour Homme by Dolce & Gabbana. Yeah, Devotion. This right here is another one where at first it was like, maybe it's gonna be, oh, never mind. No, it flopped. Oh, because Dolce & Gabbana has been struggling a little bit to get out some new lines that people really go for. Obviously with this one, they were mirroring a ladies line. They were like, let's give them the men's version. And people just didn't really go crazy for it. And now in 2026, they're gonna be jumping into the one again, bringing that back. So we'll see ultimately which Dolce & Gabbana fragrance line shakes out, but Devotion, which is kind of a mix of coffee and then fresh, clean notes like lavender and lemon, just didn't quite hit the way that I think Dolce & Gabbana wanted. Hey friends, Ash here, welcome back to Gents. Today, the 20 fragrances released in 2025 that people could not stop talking about. This is the stuff that got the buzz, got the hype, got people interested in what was coming out. Number 18, Rayhan's Pacific Aura, which this has to be Rayhan's most popular fragrance release to date. If you're unaware of Rayhan for any reason, they're a clone brand, so they make fragrances that smell similar to other things, only they cost less. And it makes sense that this one is popular because it smells similar to Louis Vuitton's Pacific Chill. So it's gonna give you a really similar vibe to that fragrance, perfect for spring and summer, good for daytime, great compliment puller, and in typical Rayhan fashion, a big time performer as well. And for me, this one kind of like marks the tipping point where Rayhan has gotten better because a lot of the fragrances released before this one were really hit or miss, we'll say that. They were either good or they smelled like toilet water. But with this one, they kind of took a big step forward and most everything that's come out after it has been really solid. Then after that, of course, Parfums de Marly. Parfums de Marly, every release they come out with, really popular. But this year actually, maybe not as good a year for them as the previous years. It's Castly. Now the reason I say it's maybe not quite as good is because this right here is the most popular release of the year. Yeah. Now, you may or may not remember, they also had a big, huge release of 3 new Extrait fragrances that were going for the low price of $550 each. Ouch. That is my favorite thing though, where fragrance brands, they look across the entire world and they say, man, it's getting hard out there for a G. It's getting expensive. What should we do? Oh, I know, raise the friggin' prices.
Let them eat cake.
And that's what they do. And PDM hit us with 3 big dogs at $550 each this year, but none of those cracked the top 20. And for good reason. And while Castly is a good release, I don't think personally it's a great one. It's fresh, it has a vague reminiscence of fragrances in the style of like Ganymede to an extent, you know, that kind of minerality. But then this one also has a soapiness to it, a stripped down woodiness, a bit of bergamot in there off the top as well. It's fine, but it's not the type of fragrance that you go out and spend a whole bunch of money for and then go, yes, I feel like I got my money's worth. Instead you go, yes, I can add this to my Parfums de Marly collection.
Bruh.
What a win. We hop up 1 spot to the most popular Hawas release of the year, Tropical. Which you may look at this and go, I think Hawas Cobra is more popular. Which as time goes on, maybe it's true that that one will surpass this one in terms of popularity. But as we stand here today, this is above Cobra. And actually, Hawas, yeah, they're like 36 new Hawas fragrances this year. Okay, maybe not 36, but there were a few. Yeah. Somebody at Rasasi was doing speedballs and they were like, we gotta put some Hawas out this year, baby. Let's go. And everything leading back to Le Beau somehow, this right here smells similar to Le Beau Paradise Garden that I mentioned earlier. So it's a clone of that fragrance. Has a great fig coconut opening, very tropical, sweet, and fresh. And I think to my own taste, this one might be my favorite Hawass release of the year also. Now you may be wondering where I got all this information from. Well, from none other than Fragrantica. Top 20 most popular men's releases of the year as of right now. The next scent, something completely different. Terre d'Hermès Eau de Parfum Intense. Now listen, this one is for the people who love Terre d'Hermès. Your average bro, your younger guy out there looking for a nuclear sweet bomb, they're not gonna like this. It actually has lava stone as one of the notes, which is it's different. But there's also coffee in here, there's licorice, there's that sort of dry woodiness that you would expect from Terre d'Hermès. It is a different scent profile from everything else that's gonna be here today. So definitely more unique, definitely something that's going to appeal more to guys probably middle-aged and older. But if you want a nice classy scent with a different twist, you gotta check it out. After that, Dior Homme Intense 2025, which is it's just Dior Homme Intense. And I'm gonna bring some things up here in a second to let you know how things are really starting to morph and change. Because while maybe it looks like on the surface that everything is just as it's always been as far as fragrance releases, what's popular and everything else, there are some things behind the scenes, some changing of the scene, changing of the guard that I think you might find interesting. But yeah, Dior Homme Intense bottle, slightly different. Fragrance, I mean, it's Dior Homme Intense. Classy, sexy, creamy iris, perfect for cool weather. I mean, I get why it's up here because anytime you say Dior Homme Intense on Fragrantica, it's gonna get talked about, you know, it's gonna shoot up the rankings. But as far as like new releases, that's not really new. This one is though, Myself Absolute. Now Myself is one of the most popular fragrance lines in the world. Truly, in terms of sales, Myself Eau de Parfum, the original, it is right up there with Dior Sauvage and Bleu de Chanel, if not better. I mean, it is right there. And I've done some videos on my channel with the actual sales data of the top 30 best-selling fragrances in the US and also the world. So feel free to check those out. I go into more detail in those videos. And those aren't just made up rankings in those videos where I just grab stuff and go like, well, I think this sells pretty good. So keep that in mind as well. Those are like the actual legitimate industry insider standard sales numbers. But Myself, like I said, enormously popular, and Myself Absolute, I'm sure, just as good. I don't have the sales rankings for this year just yet, but I have a strong inkling it's gonna be right up there. That one takes the original Myself DNA, gives it this nice boost, this kind of gingery blast off the top. Extremely wearable, big compliment puller. Aqua de Jo Elixir, also talked about a ton. I wonder why. It's an Aqua de Jo, it's an elixir. So yes, of course, Aqua de Jo Elixir is going to be talked about a ton, and it has been. But there is one interesting thing to pick from this, and that is Aqua de Jo Elixir is not in the top 10. If you went back to when Sauvage Elixir came out, okay, and really kind of kicked off the whole elixir run that we've been on over the past number of years, if you said Aqua de Jo Elixir is coming out real soon, almost guaranteed that fragrance would be one of the top 3 most talked about that year when it came out. But here we are just, you know, a few years later, Aqua de Jo Elixir comes out, and by and large, the reaction has been, oh, I knew that was coming. The scent itself has grown on me a lot. It kind of takes that Aqua de Jo vibe, that Aqua de Jo DNA, and mixes it with kind of like a little throwback from Dior, more specifically Dior Fahrenheit Cologne, which was kind of a replacement for Dior's Aqua Fahrenheit as the fresher Fahrenheit of its time. So it's like a melding, a mixing of those two lines to an extent, obviously leaning more toward the Aqua de Jo side of things, but still. And as I said, it's grown on me more as time has gone on. When I first got it, I liked it and everything, but yeah, it's kind of hard to like give it points for going like, oh, so you did that, huh? You took this and mixed it with that, cool. Then you wear it more and you kind of grow to appreciate it as its own thing. Now, obviously, as an elixir, it's gonna come in a smaller size bottle, it's gonna cost more, so that sucks. The fragrance itself is pretty solid. Now, this, getting back to what I was talking about before, is kind of interesting because it shows that the automatic reach of an Aqua de Jo release maybe is not quite as big as it used to be. And I've already heard, though, as of when I'm filming this video, it's not completely confirmed, but I've already heard there's going to be a new Aqua de Jo this next year. I know, big surprise. But the name for it was Aqua de Jo Eau de Parfum Intense, which is not the most exciting thing I've ever heard. And if that fragrance comes out and it just smells like Aqua de Joe Eau de Parfum, but stronger. I could see people even more stepping back from Aqua de Joe and going, that's okay. They're gonna have to shake it up a little bit. Next fragrance, Marwa. This one is by Arabia Prestige, and it is another clone. And the fragrance it smells quite similar to is Imagination by Louis Vuitton, which, in case you're unaware of that fragrance for some reason, it is basically the most hyped scent on TikTok pretty much ever. Basically, I think there's a written rule that if you are on TikTok, then you have to be like, Imagination, it's the craziest thing that's ever been made. This smells similar to that. Therefore, this is very popular. It is, though, really, really well done. The smell is great in terms of the quality versus the price that you pay. It has a nice little soapy aspect to it as well. We are in the top 10. And there are actually some big releases that are just outside here, you know, just down there. It's a crazy year. Now, before we get to the number 10 fragrance, which to me, I would have thought would have been the biggest release of the year before it was announced, some codes. Got a bunch of codes here for JOMASHOP, Fragflex, the perfume box, and many more. So anytime you shop at any of these stores, use these codes to save yourself some money. The next fragrance, Bleu de Chanel, L'Exclusif. Now, this is absurdly expensive. And as time goes on, it's just going to continue to slowly climb in price. And the scent itself is not bad. It's amber, it's woods, a little bit of labdanum in there as well. It basically is just an evolution of the Bleu de Chanel DNA, trying to make it a little bit classier still. But it is down here in 10th place. And I'm not gonna go into crazy detail right now, but this is kind of a reflection of where everything is at. Bleu de Chanel and Dior Sauvage year over year actually dropped in terms of sales. Now they're still the number 1 and number 2 best-selling fragrance lines for men in the world. That hasn't changed, but they did drop double-digit percentage. And at the same time, YSL with Y and Myself actually rose. And when you combine the Myself and the YSL Y lines together, actually, YSL is becoming the juggernaut fragrance house right now in terms of designers. I know everybody's hung up on like, no, it's Dior and it's Chanel. But when you actually look at the momentum right now, where the fragrance lines are, all the fragrances they have for sale, and kind of combine that together, YSL is probably the biggest one. So if that momentum keeps going as it is right now, keep your eye on that. Next one up is Extra Dose. Yes, Valentino Uomo Born in Roma Extra Dose, which does have a lot of similarities to Born in Roma Intense. But this one a little more lavender forward, not quite as heavy on the vanilla aspects, and great performance. You can use it whenever you want. Interestingly enough, the next one up, Prada Paradigm. And the more time goes on, the more it looks like this is gonna carve its own little niche out. It's somewhat similar, not the same, but somewhat similar to like YSL Myself. It's maybe a little bit inspired by that one. Obviously has a green tinge, hence the bottle coloration and everything else, but this one has gotten steadily more popular as the year has gone on. And for a lot of people who are really into fragrances, they'll smell that one and go, kind of boring. And that was kind of my reaction as well. The opening, it's interesting, but as it dries down, it gets to be a little more paint by numbers. But one thing it does extremely well, versatility, compliments, just ease of use. And so I've worn this a little bit as the year has gone on, and I've actually grown to like it a lot more too. And through the year, it has risen up these rankings as well. So it looks like Prada may have found their new line that they're gonna concentrate on, which does suck for Prada L'Homme, because that stuff has been abandoned. Then we have Gentleman Society Ombre, which I think is the best Gentleman Society. I think this stuff is great. Maybe not quite as good as Reserve Privé, but it's close. It is gonna be more appealing once again to guys like middle-aged and older. If you're younger, it's not quite that type of sweetness. But in terms of like an evening fragrance, a dressy type of scent, this stuff is great. Just outside the top 5, Camera Ducan by Lattafa. Lattafa has gotten huge, just absolutely huge. And this one, it was actually a little surprising to see it outside the top 5, because Camera is like their biggest line, or one of their biggest lines. And this one takes that DNA and adds a nice tobacco sweetness, little touch of smoke as well. Great for fall and winter time, really top-notch stuff for the price point. Inside the top 5 now, with this Forever Wanted Elixir. This is another favorite fragrance of mine for this year. Just absolutely top-notch stuff. It's got a really good raspberry combination with leather, definitely different from the Most Wanted, which came before it. And we'll have to see if they kind of expand on what, I guess, Forever Wanted is, because they've started off Forever Wanted with the Elixir. So where now? Forever Wanted Parfum, Forever Wanted Absolute, Forever Wanted Eau de Parfum. Number 4, Stronger With You Parfum. I was getting hung up on parfums and yeah. Stronger With You is a line that continues to get more and more popular as time goes on. And in actuality, in the US for a while, it was pretty difficult to find this line outside of discounters. But now they've started to pop them up at Macy's and places like that, which has shot it up the sales rankings in the US. And this one just helps push that line further and make it even more popular than it already was. And it's doing your typical parfum job, taking the DNA of the fragrance, keeping that intact, making it more of a special occasion fragrance, slightly more grown up, slightly more mature, but still having that nice warmth and sweetness that the line is known for. We are in the top 3. Now, like I said, there were some big releases not in the top 20. Boss Bottled Absolute, for example, which I thought for sure would be, but it's not. Assad Elixir by Lattafa, that's not here. The new Liquid Broom limited edition, not here. Boss Bottled Beyond, nothing from Rabanne. It's one of those deals where the more you look into it, the more you'll be like, well, how is that not on there? But a lot of this is also gonna be because if it's coming out right at the end of the year or closer towards the end of the year, then it's gonna be behind a lot of these that came out earlier in the year. Number 3 is Le Male Elixir Absolute. Not quite there at number 1, but still, 2 fragrances in the top 20 by Jean Paul Gaultier. Obviously, you can see which one won out. This one is quite similar to the Elixir that came before it, but a lot of people will say that this one is slightly less sweet, a little bit more grown up, and still has that compliment factor. Also has a really nice plum note that people enjoy. Number 2 is Dior Homme Parfum. Now I gotta say, the reason this is number 2 is probably because it was talked about a lot of arguing back and forth, and for pretty good reason, because the new Dior Homme Parfum is replacing the old Dior Homme Parfum, which the old Dior Homme Parfum is considered one of the best designer fragrances ever. Ultra strong and powerful, has this great iris leather combination in there. For a bunch of people out there, this was like the hardest to find Dior Homme, but also the best Dior Homme. The pinnacle of what an iris fragrance could be in the designer realm. And Dior went, nah, yeah. They pushed it out a window and then they were like, hey, try this, it's cool. The new one. Now I will say the new one opens up with a really nice iris. Like when you first spray this on, it's airy, it's a little bit sweet. It has touches of that kind of creamy makeup-y vibe, but not as much. Instead, it has more of an almost sparkle to it. But it is fleeting. And then after that, it dries down into more standard, like vanilla forward territory, which a whole bunch of fragrances are doing right now. Which, to be fair, if you put this one up against the original one and you say, which one is more modern? Oh, that one, easy. Which one's more versatile? Which one's more wearable? Which one's probably gonna get you more compliments? That one. Which one is more unique? This one. It's not close. So there's that kind of disconnect where it's like, well, what do you value, right? If it's this, all this stuff over here, then you want this one. If it's all this stuff over here, then you want that one. And also, anytime that you take a fragrance and you replace it, a lot of people are gonna be unhappy. Now, to be fair for Dior, they probably don't really care if something's more unique, they just want money. And that is making them more money right now, so. But yeah, number 2, Dior Homme Parfum, which again, at the very beginning of the year, if you said, hey, there's gonna be a new Dior Homme Parfum, there's gonna be a new Bleu de Chanel, you would probably put money on these being like number 1 and number 2 most talked about of the year, right? It did not happen. Well, one of them. The number 1 fragrance is Lattafa Assad Bourbon. Yes, Assad Bourbon. That is, as of right this minute, the number 1 most popular men's fragrance from 2025 on that website. And it smells similar to the Most Wanted, with a bit of a Valentino Uomo Born in Roma Intense, maybe even with the smidge of something like Scandal Absolute underneath as well. So it's like this hybridization of taking what is most popular and just saying, put it in a blender, bam. And also cheap. So that helps. Which means that as of this moment, a clone hybrid fragrance release from Lattafa is the most popular release for men of the year. The most talked about, the most hyped, however you want to spin it, that's what it is. Now I do think as time goes on that these rankings will change, and possibly heavily, because that's how it is sometimes. Some fragrances will catch on much later as people wear them more and more, kind of like Paradigm there, and you'll go like, this stuff is way better than when I first got it in, you know, I maybe was wrong about this and it will move up. Other fragrances, you'll be like, this stuff is actually not that good, and gets talked about less and moves down. But in this moment, this snapshot in time, there it is. I want to thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.